And ready.
Go ahead, Mary.
You're live, Commissioner.
Good morning. You're tuning in to the Board of County Commissioners Board Work Session. Today is Thursday, March 3rd, 2022. It is 9:03 a.m. This is a virtual meeting for public attendance. You may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel or join by calling 360-252-9020, PIN number 1234. I am Carolina Mejia, Chair of the Board. I am joined by Vice Chair Ty Menser, as well as Commissioner Gary Edwards, County Manager Ramirez Chavez, and Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell, as well as other county staff members. Today we will be discussing a budget work session, and it's an informational session. And with that, am I handing it off to Robin or to you, Ramiro?
Maybe if I may, just opening statements. Thank you, commissioners. This morning you will hear, it seems to me that we just finished the biennial budget process back in December. Here we are, just about over 2 months later. But that's part of the process. Today you will hear a little bit more details related to the upcoming budget amendment. And the key of the presentation that Robin is going to walk you through is the midterm adjustment. And that is the second year of the biennium. And that is important for the board to agree on the calendar that will be presented to you. That's may require formal approval. And also agree by the board what are the parameters in which the midterm budget amendment needs to go through it. And that is also important for you to gravitate on that, because that information will be sent to offices and departments as they go in preparing the midterm budget adjustment. So out of today's conversation, those are the two key pieces the board needs to engage and involve. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Romero, for setting the stage. Now, just follow up on that. We're going to look at the proposed process for the midterm adjustments and also the process for the budget amendments. And remember, we do 2 amendments each year, one in the spring and then one late in the year. And then the midterm adjustment is part of the biennial process and is required by law. So we'll talk about what is required in those, things that are optional, what staff propose you include, and what staff propose you exclude from both of these processes. I'm going to share my screen to show PowerPoint, and I'm having technical difficulties today, so the only thing I'll be able to see is my PowerPoint. So Romero's going to help me. Commissioners, if you've got a question about anything, please stop me. And then Romero will help to facilitate that as well. So it's going to look odd for just a minute. Well, I see if I can't make this work. So are you seeing the PowerPoint now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So we're talking about the amendments and the midterm adjustments. And we are looking for a decision from the board, if not today, then as soon as possible, on the process and the calendar, and you have both in your packet. So the budget amendments, the RCW allows for the Board of County Commissioners to amend the county budget during the fiscal period. And you can do what is called in the state law supplemental appropriations, and they can be from unanticipated receipt of funds from state, local, or federal sources, or you're allowed to make transfers and revisions within departments. So you have pretty broad authority to make amendments during the fiscal year. Amendments include unanticipated receipts. We do fund balance adjustments. Remember, in the spring of every year when we close the fiscal year, we amend the beginning fund balance of every fund. We do error corrections in the First Amendment. We are suggesting to the board that you allow offices and departments to roll over funds that were not spent last year on one-time projects, not salary savings or programmatic savings, but for example, the coroner ordered equipment. It did not arrive by December 31st. So we were not able to pay for that out of 2021 funding. And what we're proposing is the coroner can show that he didn't spend that money and that the board approve appropriation adjustment in 2022 so that he can pay for the equipment as you intended in his 2021 budget. So that's a technical thing, and we are suggesting that you allow that in the budget amendment for offices and departments that can show those savings in the need. And then in the second amendment, we always include any urgent need of changes that are necessary to close the fiscal year. So that's what we generally include in the amendments. The amendment schedules, people are already working on the first budget amendment for this year, and they're asking what are the rules, if you will, for what they can and can't submit. Change requests are due into Questica by the end of this month. We will present the proposals to the commissioners by April 28th. On May 10th, we will publish the legal notice of the intent, or rather we will submit to the clerk of the board and the legal information, and then that will be published on May 17th. 17th and 18th doesn't quite look nice. It's going to be published once each week for 2 consecutive weeks. So that second date there is not quite correct. I'll fix that. But what we are shooting for is adopting the First Amendment by the end of May. And then the Second Amendment, we want to push as late in the year as possible so that we can address any year-end needs. So we'll start the process in October, same sort of process, adopt on December 14th. So that's the proposed calendar for the amendments. Any questions so far about budget amendments before I start talking about the midterms? No? Okay.
Can I do, Robin?
Yes, good.
My question, it's not about the dates, but kind of the scope of what's going to be allowed in both Amendment 1 and Amendment 2. Is this where we talk about that or no?
Yes, that is this right here.
Okay.
And in a minute, I'll get to the things that we propose to exclude from both the amendments and the midterm. So we can talk about that now, or we can talk about that after I show here the things that are not part of these processes.
You can go. You can keep the flow. If you're going to talk about it later, that's fine.
Yep, we'll come back to that because that is exactly what we need to talk about today. What does the board want to include and what do you want to exclude?
Thank you.
So, yep, thank you. Midterm adjustment. So the law allows, as you know, the Board of County Commissioners to set a biennial budget. And when you do that, the law requires that there's a midterm adjustment. And the law simply says that you have to have a midterm adjustment. It doesn't say what needs to be included in that adjustment or that there has to be any particular reasons, just that there has to be one. There are a few things that we are required to do annually that we include in the midterm adjustment. But what we found when we did the research about biennial budgets is jurisdictions that tried it and then went back to annual almost all said that they went back because they might as well just be preparing an annual budget. If you're doing a full-blown budget process, you're not capturing any of the benefits from having a biennial budget. So they all recommend that we keep the midterm adjustment narrow. It's not a full-blown budget process. So here are what we suggest you include in the midterm adjustment. We're required under the BARS manual to update our internal service rates every year. So those are in the adjustment. We will, of course, include an update to our revenue based on forecasts, new grants, any new money coming in, or if we see that we're not collecting as much as anticipated, we would adjust that down. And property taxes every year. Those are not once every 2 years. We adjust the personnel costs to allow for COLA and other benefits in the midterm, and any benefits that the board approves during labor contract negotiations are included in the midterm. Rollover expenditures, we haven't done this in the past, but again, we are recommending to the board that you allow offices and departments that are projecting savings other than salaries and benefits to roll those savings over into the second year of the biennium. And you would reduce first year spending and increase second year spending. The capital facility plan, we still do that every year. Emergent needs, of course, come up. Any funds that have significant changes in them, the board would review the funds. In a biennium year, you review all the funds. In a midterm adjustment, you would only review those funds that have significant impact. And then any impacts from legislative session would be included in the midterms.
Robin, Commissioner Nixon put a question on the chat.
Great. I can't see it, so I apologize.
I just raised my hand. Thank you, Robin. 2 questions. On personnel costs, that would just be if a labor contract significantly changed. I mean, you are projecting COLAs and stuff based on what our contracts currently say, but you're saying if there was a new labor agreement that made that estimate inaccurate, you'd be able to adjust it. Is that correct? That's correct. Okay, and then the second one is the rollover. Is this the item that the treasurer was, county treasurer was asking us to? It sounds like the policy that he was advocating for during the budget process. I'm wondering if it is, or if there's a different wrinkle to it, or if you remember that.
I'm so sorry. I don't remember exactly what the treasurer was advocating for. I do believe he was in the same situation as the coroner is in, where something didn't come in by the end of the year. I know that one of the offices or departments had suggested that they be able to carry over funding, and I think that that's a reasonable request other than salary savings. I would not carry salary savings over, but if you meant to buy equipment and couldn't or didn't for some reason, the reason I wouldn't carry over salary savings is we budget salaries at exactly what every office and department needs to fill every FTE. At the time that we set the budget, it's the known FTEs, and if there's a vacant FTE, it's budgeted at mid-range. So if you have salary savings in this year and you roll them into the second year, that would create a growth effect that would obligate the board in future years, and that's what you want to avoid. But if you allow offices and departments to roll over essentially one-time savings to spend in the second year because they didn't have an opportunity to spend them in the first year, that does not obligate future budgets, if that makes sense.
Okay, I'm remembering as you're speaking, and I'm remembering, and I know there was an argument, I think, from treasurer and the prosecutor about a true biennial, like let them have 2 years worth of play, and then, but there was an argument, I think, that the auditor and yourself were making that, like, no, there has to, for good accounting, there has to be kind of a year in. Now we could have a policy where we kind of automatically allows this, for this example about a expenditure. So is that what you're saying is, but we
Yeah.
are going to stick with this idea that you kind of have a year-end accounting, and there isn't just sort of like, okay, here's 2 years of money and we'll check back in with you in 2 years.
That's exactly right. We have to close the fiscal year by law. We have to close the fiscal year. And I do remember now the prosecutor suggesting a what he called a true biennial budget, where you just give them 2 years worth of appropriation. But the the examples that he shared, like state of Washington, they do 2 one-year budgets. It's not here's the money for 2 years. So I think that there still has to be some type of check and balance, and we have to be able to close the fiscal year. And the board does depend on reversions. As we build the budget, we build in a certain assumption for reversions that are mainly salary savings. So you don't want to get in the way of that, but I'm seeking a middle ground, if you will.
Okay, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, you're not, we're doing this, but it's not exactly, it's not going to get us into the traps that you were concerned about with the kind of the, for example, the prosecutor's idea. It's a middle ground.
Right.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Great. All right. So these are the things that a midterm that we're suggesting you include. Here are the things that are not in either type of adjustment, not in a midterm adjustment, not in a budget amendment. This is not an opportunity for offices and departments to come in with new policy ideas, expand my program now, I need a bunch of FTEs. I mean, if a state law changed and there is a reason or an emergency arises or an urgent need comes up that no one ever expected, then of course the board would consider these types of things. But to just come in with a new idea, this is not the time. It's not a time for requesting items that were not authorized in the original budget. The board went through a long deliberation process and made hard decisions about what you would and would not fund for this biennium. So to just come in at this time and say, hey, I want this, you said no then, I'm going to try again. That is not a fair playing field for everyone. And this is not the time to do that. One thing that we would not do in order to save time, there would not be presentations by every office and department. For, say, the treasurer rarely has a midterm request. If there is no request, we would not have the treasurer come in. So small offices or offices that don't have significant needs would not come before the board. That way we reduce the time on your calendar. And then, excuse me, as I said earlier, you would not be reviewing all the funds. You would look at those funds with significant impact. So that is the proposal.
Robin, can you go back?
Yes.
On the bullet number 1, could we have an exception, meaning if there is a new grant that brings revenue and requires FTE, then probably that may be an option.
Right. So revenue, including new grants and unanticipated receipts, those are in. It's where, like, I would not come and say, hey, I've been thinking about this and I really need another budget FTE. This would not be the time for me to do that.
Yeah, thank you.
So,
I don't see in Commissioner Mejia, Commissioner Edwards don't see it. Okay.
all right. Here's the calendar that we're proposing for the midterm. With as it feels like we just finished with the biennial budget, but the budget cycle just it's a circle. It doesn't stop. So your budget team has started right away in January thinking about what is it we need to do. The internal service providers are already working on inventories to set up rates. We have a draft calendar before you today. So lots of work is already in process that would lead up to the call to budgets on June 17th. Budget requests would be due from offices and departments by August 5th. Commissioners would receive your preliminary budget. This is a legal due date on the first Tuesday in September. Then we would give you an overview in work sessions on September 7th and 8th. In October, early in October, if there need to be any presentations, we would do that. And then budget work sessions and preliminary decisions in that last week of October. And we would ask you to make final preliminary decisions. You may remember that term because they're not final until after the public hearing. But these are final decisions on what goes into the preliminary budget that the board releases. We're asking you to make those decisions by October 28th because that allows 3 weeks for budget staff to put the budget together in a format for public review and to create the budget book, which must be published no later than November 21st, so that we can hold public hearings on the first Monday, starting on the first Monday in December. That would be the 5th and 6th. Final work sessions on December 7 and 8. You would adopt the property tax resolution on December 13th, and then final midterm adjustment adoption on December 16th. So that's the proposed calendar. And I'm going to stop sharing now. And it's the time for the conversation about what you would like to include or what you'd like to change from staff proposal.
Question, comments, Commissioner Edwards?
No, I think I'll just absorb it.
Commissioner Edwards, you're coming in a little bit garbled. Garbled, not jarbled.
Your connection seems to be a little bit off, Commissioner Edwards.
We can't hear you, Commissioner Edwards. I'll go to Commissioner Menser and questions, comments.
I don't think I have any. I'm comfortable with the recommendations that are made by staff.
Okay, well, it looks like we're all having problems. So I don't have any questions at this point.
Oh, and now we've lost him.
Oh.
I heard him say he didn't have any questions.
Yeah.
Before he snapped out.
Okay. I don't either, Robin. The recommendations seem good to me. And
Madam Chair,
yes, sir.
maybe I can bring this on Tuesday morning just to, give the opportunity for you to review in more detail the recommendations and give commissioners.
Yeah, no, I think that would be
fine.
fine. I'm hearing chair and a very, I'm not sure if it might be a possibility to call Commissioner Edwards for the commissioners check-in on the line, maybe.
Yes, I will catch up with them. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, if there are no further questions or comments, Robin, thank you so much.
Thank you. And if you have any questions before next Tuesday, please contact any one of us and we can clarify or fill you in, or if you have other ideas, we'd be happy to adjust.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. I'll see you at 10.